Abd'u'l Baha, unique and peerless. He was born before midnight on the very day the Baha'i faith began. Thus, his remarkable life spans the entire duration of the heroic age from beginning to end.
He was diamonds, he was oceans, he was eyes of Persian blue, he was first light, he was many, he was one. Open-hearted in the autumn, open-hearted in the spring, summer roses in his tunic each season. He was harbor, he was haven, he was heaven, he was home, he was warm smile, he was soft voice, he was tears. Strong and tender like a river, and his heart beat like a bird's. How I long to hear those wings beat close again.
He was kind, tender, loving, compassionate, and he was mighty and majestic. Isaiah himself had prophesied of him, saying that in the last days the eldest son, the firstborn, would be raised higher than the kings of the earth. Baha'u'llah had promised him that someday he would raise his voice in the west, that wherever his feet walked, that land would be blessed, doubly blessed. For 9 long months, he walked among us here in North America.
(1912) in America. A land of optimism and vitality. Immigrants flocked to its welcoming shores in search of a better life. The United States was still expanding, with stars for new states, Arizona and New Mexico, added to its flag. People everywhere were dancing American dances, listening to American music, and wearing American fashions. The first eastbound transcontinental flight was made. Columbia University established the Pulitzer Prize for Journalists. Universal Pictures became incorporated as the nation's first movie studio. Oliver Twist became America's first feature-length film. A woman named Juliette Gordon Low made news when she founded the organization that became known as the Girl Scouts of America. The 5th Olympic Summer Games were held in Sweden, with Americans winning the most gold medals. The Boston Red Sox defeated New York during the World Series of 1912. Some of the games took place in Fenway Park, which opened earlier that year. 3,000 cherry trees were given by Japan to Washington, D.C. to symbolize optimism and friendship. But there were problems as well. Undernourished and unhealthy, children worked long hours in mills and mines. Racial laws and segregation reflected deeply embedded prejudice. Women could not yet vote, a controversial issue. Labor unions arose in response to increasing poverty and the growing gap between rich and poor. It was an election year. Politics had become almost unthinkably divisive, fragmenting the Republican Party and leading to the election of a Democratic president. Religion in America was increasingly diverse, reflecting the beliefs of waves of new immigrants. Conservative Protestants vehemently disagreed on points of doctrine, while liberal thinkers explored alternative beliefs, including the appealing philosophies of Hindu and Buddhist sages, such as Swami Vivekananda and Dharmapala. Abd'u'l Baha entered this compelling scene as the leader of an emerging independent religion. Born in Persia in 1844, he was given the name Abbas Effendi, yet preferred to be known as Abd'u'l Baha, servant of glory. He was the son of Baha'u'llah, the revealer of a new universal religion, the Baha'i faith. Abd'u'l Baha was the first to recognize the spiritual station of his father, and thus the first Baha'i. In 1892, Baha'u'llah passed away. It was in his will and testament that Baha'u'llah appointed Abd'u'l Baha as his successor. He called Abd'u'l Baha the center of his covenant. This covenant with his followers was to assure that power struggles would not mar the goal of unity among the believers. It would safeguard the Baha'i faith from splitting into divisions. After 40 years of confinement in the prison city of Akka, he was liberated in 1908 by the Young Turk Revolution. Despite the exile and imprisonment of its leaders, the Baha'i faith had already spread to the West. American Baha'is, such as the philanthropist Phoebe Hearst, made the arduous journey to the Holy Land to see him. Others waited eagerly for his visit to America. News of his freedom prompted followers around the world to urge him to visit their countries. Americans invited him to sail to their shores aboard the new luxury liner, the Titanic. Abd'u'l Baha returned the money offered for his trip and chose to board the more modest ship, the SS Cedric, which sailed from Egypt on March 25th.
April 1912. Talk at home of Mr. and Mrs. Arthur J. Parsons, 1700 18th Street, Northwest, Washington, D.C. Notes by Joseph H. Hannon. Today I have been speaking from dawn until now, yet because of love, fellowship, and desire to be with you, I have come here to speak again briefly. Within the last few days, a terrible event has happened in the world, an event saddening to every heart and grieving every spirit. I refer to the Titanic disaster, in which many of our fellow human beings were drowned. A number of beautiful souls passed beyond this earthly life. Although such an event is indeed regrettable, we must realize that everything which happens is due to some wisdom, and that nothing happens without a reason. Therein is a mystery, but whatever the reason and mystery, it was a very sad occurrence, one which brought tears to many eyes and distress to many souls. I was greatly affected by this disaster. Some of those who were lost voyaged on the Cedric with us as far as Naples, and afterward sailed upon the other ship. When I think of them, I am very sad indeed. But when I consider this calamity in another aspect, I am consoled by the realization that the worlds of God are infinite, that though they were deprived of this existence, they have other opportunities in the life beyond, even as Christ has said, "In my Father's house are many mansions." They were called away from the temporary and transferred to the eternal. They abandoned this material existence and entered the portals of the spiritual world.
Good morning. I'm Father Andrew Foster, the rector of the Church of the Ascension, and I'm happy to welcome friends from far and near and members of the Spiritual Assembly of Baha'is in the city of New York to the Church of the Ascension for this centenary celebration of the inaugural talk given by Abd'u'l Baha during his historic visit to the United States in the year 1912. A lot has happened in this city of the world over the last 100 years, from the sinking of the great ocean liner Titanic to the destruction of the twin towers of the World Trade Center in our own times. There have been world wars, voyages to the moon, and inconceivable advances in the realms of art, science, and literature. But despite all the amazing changes that have occurred over the last century, some things still remain the same. Allow me to illustrate this by quoting some of the words from my worthy predecessor, the Reverend Percy Stickney Grant, as he welcomed Abd'u'l Baha a century ago. Dr. Grant said on that occasion, "It is to be our privilege this morning to hear one who has come out of the East, a new and great herald of goodwill, one bearing a message of love to all mankind. Abd'u'l Baha Abbas is a master of the things of the Spirit. He comes from that part of the world where men meditate, where contemplation was born. He teaches the fundamental unity of all religions, a truth in which this congregation believes profoundly. And we welcome here one who may help the material fervor of the Occident to gain new peace by the infiltration of the harmonies of the Orient."
Let us put aside our thoughts of self. Let us close our eyes to all on earth. Let us neither make known our sufferings nor complain of our wrongs. Rather let us become oblivious of our own selves, and drinking down the wine of heavenly grace. Let us cry out our joy and lose ourselves in the beauty of the all-glorious, in the beauty of the all-glorious. Let us put aside our thoughts of self. Let us close our eyes to all on earth. Let us neither make known our sufferings nor complain of our wrongs. Rather let us become oblivious of our own selves, and drinking down the wine of heavenly grace, let us cry out our joy and lose ourselves in the beauty of your glorious, in the beauty of your glorious.
Today, in every Baha'i home all over the world, you can look upon a photograph of his radiant face with its inner joy. Abd'u'l Baha, the Master, the mystery of God, whose dear, tender smile, like his love, now covers the earth as the waters cover the sea.
On April 11, Abd'u'l Baha's ship entered the New York harbor. Reporters went out to interview him. Wendell Phillips Dodge of the New York City News Association wrote,
Abd'u'l Baha was found on the upper deck, his long, flowing oriental robe flapping in the breeze. His face was light itself as he scanned the harbor and greeted the reporters. When the ship drew abreast of the Statue of Liberty, Abd'u'l Baha held his arms wide apart in salutation and said,
"There is the New World symbol of liberty and freedom. After being 40 years a prisoner, I can tell you that freedom is not a matter of place, it is a condition. When one is released from the prison of self, that is indeed a release."
Gazing at the skyscrapers, he said,
"These are the minarets of Western world commerce and industry. They seem to stretch heavenward in an endeavor to bring about this universal peace for which we are all working."
Other journalists quizzed him. "Why have you come to America?" He replied,
"To visit the peace societies of America, because the fundamental principles of our cause are universal peace and the promotion of the oneness and truth of all the divine religions."
Concerning women's suffrage, Abd'u'l Baha remarked,
"The world in the past has been ruled by force, and man has dominated over woman by reason of his more forceful and aggressive qualities. But the balance is already shifting. Force is losing its dominance, and mental alertness, intuition, and the spiritual qualities of love and service in which woman is strong are gaining ascendancy."
Many Baha'is and others came out to meet him. Abd'u'l Baha asked that they meet him later. Then, with a small group of companions, he stepped onto the shores of America. Juliet Thompson, a portrait painter and ardent disciple, kept a diary of her interactions with him. She remembers,
"The ship docked, but the master did not appear. Suddenly I had a great glimpse. Beyond the deck, striding to and fro, was one with a step that shook you. Just that one stride, charged with power, the sweep of a robe, a majestic head, turban crowned. That was all I saw, but my heart stopped."
Again, the first thing we need to do if we want to be like Abd'u'l Baha is never unburden other people with our unhappiness. But furthermore, never try to one-up somebody when they're unhappy and say, "Oh, you think..." Abd'u'l Baha, when people said they weren't happy, he didn't say, "Oh, yeah, we'll try living in Akka." You know, he didn't say, "Try the Sea of Shaw." You know, you think you got to... He didn't say that. Okay? No. So that's the first thing we need to do. If we want to live this, we have to live this and not dwell on things. Now, Abd'u'l Baha, if somebody was not happy, this was very important to him.
My religion, Abd'u'l Baha said, is service to all mankind, every human being. And he called upon each one of us to do the same with our lives. Look at me, follow me, be as I am.
Die to the world and so be born again and enter to the kingdom of heaven. Look at me, follow me, be as I as a rock that no earthly storm can move. And as you have faith, so shall your powers be, and know that till the end I'm always with you. Look at me, follow me, be as I am, Abd'u'lBaha, Abd'u'lBaha.
1873, Akka. Because of overcrowding, Baha'u'llah, Abd'u'l Baha, and their companions are released from the main prison building called the Citadel and allowed to find housing elsewhere within the walls of Akka. Abd'u'l Baha is free to travel throughout the walled city. He spends much of his time tending to the needs of the poor, listening to them, and giving wise counsel and comfort. Many of the people of Akka call Abd'u'l Baha Father of the Poor. Even Baha'u'llah had once remarked, "We will have to protect Abd'u'l Baha from himself. Someday he will give himself away."
On April 20th, Abd'u'l Baha traveled to Washington, D.C. Newspaper columnist Elbert Hubbard reported,
"A very great man has recently visited America. Out of Persia comes Abd'u'l Baha, who calls himself the servant of God. This man is the modern Messiah. He meets all classes and kinds of people. Let him visit any bank, factory, office building, church, and everything is laid aside, and eyes bulge and ears listen until he takes his departure.
Agnes Parsons, the daughter of a military officer who had fought under General Custer, married into wealth and with a circle of prominent friends, had made a pilgrimage to Akka in 1910. She created a Georgian-style home with a room that could hold 150 people. During his first visit to Washington, he stayed in her home, and on subsequent visits, he held meetings there regularly. She introduced Abd'u'l Baha to politicians, artists, writers, and professors in large and small gatherings around the city. On April 26th, he entertained numerous visitors, including the U.S. Treasurer Lee McClung, who later recalled,
"I felt as if I were in the presence of a great prophet. Isaiah, Elijah. No, that's not it. The presence of Christ. No. I felt as if I were in the presence of my divine Father."
He addressed capacity crowds at President Taft's All Saints Unitarian Church and the prestigious Continental Hall of the Daughters of the American Revolution, sharing the platform with reformers like Samuel Gompers and DAR President Julia Green Scott. Before an audience of 3,000, including young suffragette women, he spoke on the importance of women's rights and received a standing ovation.
One of the teachings of Baha'u'llah is equality of rights for men and women. When he promulgated this principle in the Orient, the people were astonished. One of the proofs of the advancement of women is this magnificent building and this large gathering.
When he spoke of the necessity of giving women the same training as men, applause was thunderous. One newspaper had reported,
Abd'u'l Baha, leader of the Baha'i movement, in his last public address in this city, last night at the Memorial Continental Hall, made a plea for the equality of man and woman.
آزار میبینی به شما جفا میکنند و ستم روا میدارند شما بزرگوار و دلیر و مهربان باشید و این مناجات را با عبدالبها در میان نهید هوالای پروردگار بی کسم و بی نفس خاشاکم و خس ضعیفم و بس تویی فریاد رس
What we would nowadays call a prisoner of conscience travelled extensively throughout Europe and North America over a period of 23 months in the years 1911 to 1913. After more than half a century of exile, Abd'u'l Baha Abbas had been released from Ottoman captivity in 1908. He was 64 years old and his health had been impaired by what he had experienced, yet, upon his release, he planned and undertook the venture in a spirit to which his very name bore witness. Abd'u'l Baha, the servant of Baha, was the eldest son of Mirza Hussain Ali Nuri, known to history as Baha'u'llah, the glory of God, founding figure of the Baha'i faith, and believed by Baha'is to be the manifestation or messenger of God for this day. On his father's passing in 1892, Abd'u'l Baha became head of the religion. He visited Britain in 1911. The message he gave of love, unity, the oneness of mankind, and the harmony of religions appealed to all. On the afternoon of September the 9th, Miss Buckton, Miss Sheppel, and a number of friends at Vanner's in Byfleet, a village some 20 miles out of London, had the great privilege of meeting Abd'u'l Baha. They wrote a short record of his sayings to keep for themselves. The following is an extract. Abd'u'l Baha began by saying, as he seated himself, "Are you happy?" And our faces must have shown him that we were. He then said, "I love you all. You are the children of the kingdom, and you are accepted of God. Luxuries cut off the freedom of communication. One who is imprisoned by desires is always unhappy. All day long, people of every condition gathered about the gate for a chance of seeing him." In his last days in the United Kingdom, he visited the Woking area for the 3rd time. He was invited by the Muslim community on the 17th of January 1913 to give a short talk for the reopening of Woking's Shah Jahan Mosque, the first purpose-built mosque in Britain. After praying in the mosque with the congregation in the early afternoon, he came outside and spoke to the crowd of diverse people of many nationalities and faiths. "I summoned the people to work for the unity of the human race and for the peace of the whole world. I told them the principles of the religion of God, saying unto them, the foundation of the religion of God is one." A few days after this event, he left Britain for the final time. After his return to Egypt, Abd'u'l Baha sent a kind message of remembrance to the people of Byfleet, saying that he would never forget them.
Peace is light where war is darkness. Peace is life where war is death. Thoughts of peace tell of love, brotherhood and happiness. Happiness. Concentrate on the thoughts of your hearts, our love and unity, our love and unity. Peace is life, and war is death, Peace is guidance, and war is error, Thoughts of war bring destruction to all good and harmony. When a thought of war comes, oppose it by a stronger thought of peace. Peace is light. Peace is light. Where war is darkness. War is darkness. Peace is light. Peace is light. Where war is death. War is death. Thoughts of peace tell of love, brotherhood and happiness. Happiness. For love is light. Love is light. No matter in what abode it dwelleth. For love is light. Love is light. No matter in what abode it
Akka, the early days of the 20th century. Despite relative freedom, Abd'u'l Baha continues to live in conditions of hardship and danger. He is especially grieved as it is a period of sustained and barbaric persecution of the Baha'is in Persia. Physical torture and moral persecution continue for those who embrace the new faith. Even some of his own family members plot against him. In the midst of this, he continues to plant trees that bear fruit, which he offers to his friends and enemies alike.
On August 17th, Abd'u'l Baha arrived in Elliott, Maine, at Greenacre, a conference center founded by Sarah Farmer to bring together people of diverse backgrounds and points of view. Sarah was the daughter of electrical genius Moses Garish Farmer and humanitarian Hannah Shapley Farmer, who established a residence for poor women and their children. Their home had been a way station on the Underground Railroad, and they knew Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, and other reformers. In 1893, at the World's Parliament of Religions, Sarah invited Swami Vivekananda and Dharmampala to speak at Greenacre, where social reformers, educators, artists, scientists, religious seekers, and philosophers met to share ideas. The following year, Sarah dedicated Greenacre to the ideals of peace and unity and had the first known peace flag raised. Greenacre emerged as a center, if not the very heart, of liberal religion in the United States. In 1900, Sarah met Abd'u'l Baha in Akka and embraced his teachings. When Abd'u'l Baha arrived, she had not visited Greenacre in 3 years, having been confined to a sanatorium in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. As Abd'u'l Baha approached Greenacre by car, multicolored Japanese lanterns and 500 eager souls lined the road. He stayed in the Greenacre Inn, in a room on the 3rd floor. After a short rest, he gave a brief talk on the investigation of reality. He then went to see Sarah Farmer in Portsmouth. According to Mahmoud,
when she saw Abd'u'l Baha, she fell into such a state of rapture that every heart was moved.
During his week there, Abd'u'l Baha brought Sarah Farmer to Greenacre and took her to see historic sites. A rare photograph was taken of Abd'u'l Baha kissing Sarah Farmer's cheek in the motor car. Margaret Klebs recalled,
"The beloved one held her in his arms, driving slowly around the Greenacre fields. Blessed are we who could witness it."
Every evening, Abd'u'l Baha spoke to several hundred on the oneness of humanity, the need for world peace, and the role of love. Mahmoud reported that Abd'u'l Baha's eloquence produced
a wonderful impression on the whole audience. Fortune tellers, spiritualists, and ascetics came here to spread their superstitious views. The discourse of Abd'u'l Baha completely swept away the cobwebs of superstitions. Some impostors came to see him, bowing and repenting.
Abd'u'l Baha will be remembered in our hearts. And for Baha'is, we pray that all of humanity may come to hear his words of wisdom and be enlightened therefrom. Thank you very much.
The photograph I see comes alive so easily and tells me of a life that was so pure.
He would never turn away from anyone, and the love in his eyes is so real.
He suffered all his life to show us how to be free. He could always love his enemy.
And through the worst of trials, he could always smile.